Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Just wanted to share a couple quick stories with you, and then we'll pick up your phone calls here. It's Anything Goes Friday. These are a few science stories, actually, that I find absolutely fascinating. The first, Swedish startup uses AI, as in artificial intelligence, to figure out what dolphins talk about. Dolphins have brains that are about the same size as ours, and with a, well, I was going to say a similar level of complexity. I'm not sure exactly how you would quantify that, but there are a number of scientists who have suggested over the years that dolphins may be nearly as intelligent as we are, perhaps more intelligent than some of the other larger primates. And they do have a language. They do talk to each other. And so this Swedish startup company has created an artificial intelligence program that listens to a language that it doesn't know and translates it into meaning based on patterns within the language, patterns of speech within the language. And they have successfully built, it has successfully learned, this computer program, 40 languages now, 40 different and disparate languages. And so now they are turning it on Dolphin. And they note for decades, the U.S. Navy has used marine mammals such as dolphins and sea lions to carry out a range of tasks, from locating underwater mines to harbor defense. The animals are part of the Space and Naval Warfare Systems Center Pacific, located in San Diego, California. So anyhow, that I found fascinating. And I mentioned, when we opened the show, gut stuff. This is incredible. The research that's coming out, the new science that's coming out about the relationship between the bacteria in our intestines, mostly in the large intestine, the colon, as opposed to the small intestine, which is a little more sterile, I guess, and the stomach, which is not, has some bacteria in it, but typically shouldn't. Or maybe not, I don't know. But this gut bacteria, this is a BFD. It turns out, well, I got 4 stories here to share with you, and a tip of the hat to Troy for finding these today, Troy Miller. The first one by David Neal. This is from ScienceAlert.com. We just got more evidence, more new evidence, that Parkinson's starts in the gut and not the brain. There's a giant nerve that goes from the gut to the brain. It's called the vagus nerve, and it plays a role in regulating all kinds of physiological and metabolic functions. In fact, by intentionally and manually stimulating the vagus nerve, you can change brain activity. Simple way to do this: sit up straight and breathe only using your stomach, and take an in-breath to 7, pushing your stomach out, and then hold it for a second or 2, and then take an out-breath for the count of 7, pulling your stomach in, using only your stomach muscles to breathe. And what happens is that movement of your diaphragm and the movement of all your your abdominal viscera, your guts, stimulates the vagus nerve in a way that down-regulates the brainstem, which is what controls the basic level of frenetic activity inside your brain. And so if you want to calm yourself down really quickly, and this also will reflect in blood pressure and everything else, but in terms of mental activity, just try this breathing from the stomach exercise. I've shared this with you before. Well, now they find that if they cut the vagus nerve, it's called a truncal vagotomy. If they cut the vagus nerve, which links the digestive tract to the brain, this is a 5-year study. Patients who had this link completely removed were 40% less likely to develop Parkinson's than those who hadn't. And according to a team from Karolinska Institute in Sweden, that's a significant difference, and it backs up earlier work linking the development of that brain disease, of Parkinson's, to something happening inside our guts. And by the way, want to screw up your gut bacteria? Take antibiotics. Most of us have screwed up gut bacteria because of taking antibiotics at some point in our lives. And number 1, Parkinson's. So we've got that. Number 2, this is chronic fatigue. A new study has shown that people with chronic fatigue syndrome have abnormal levels of a specific gut bacteria, providing more evidence that it's not just in your head. Millions of people have this. It causes brain fog, severe pain, exhaustion, so extreme, sometimes people can't even go through their daily lives. but they haven't been able to find a cause for it. The U.S. Institute of Medicine in 2015 came up with a diagnostic criteria for it, but still no effective treatments. And new research has shown that patients with this have abnormal levels of a specific gut bacteria, and those levels change depending on the severity and type of symptoms they have. Individuals with ME/CFS have a distinct mix of gut bacteria and related metabolic disturbances that may influence the severity of their disease. And the strains that they're looking at specifically are Faecalbacterium, Rosaburia, Doria, Caprococcus, Clostridium. This is as in C. difficile, I believe, which is a very, very destructive pathogenic gut bacteria, Ruminococcus, and Coprobacillus, which clearly sounds like a fecal bacteria. And when these are elevated, then you can predict a diagnosis of chronic fatigue. That's pretty amazing. And along those lines, I wanted to tell you, this is not a product placement or endorsement or anything, but there's a whole field of science that is just emerging. And I had a persistent infection back a couple of years ago. This is 5, 6, maybe 8 years ago, that I couldn't get rid of. And there is a company in, I think it's Romania. It's one of the former Soviet countries that is just pioneering phage therapies, P-H-A-G-E. A phage is a little tiny virus. They're RNA viruses. They're small viruses that infect bacteria and kill the bacteria. And I tried the phage therapy for that infection, and it ultimately went away. And I don't know if it was the phages or if it was the antibiotic that I was taking along with them. But now there's a new product out that I've been using for a month or so, and I think it's really cool stuff. It seems to help my guts well, and it's from Life Extension. It's called Fluorocist, but it's got phage technology. It's got phages in it. It's got 5 different bacteria for your gut, plus, or maybe it's 7, plus 4 different phages. And these are specific. You're taking a virus that doesn't infect people, doesn't infect cells. It only infects bacteria. And so these viruses kill the bacteria in the gut. It's like super smart without, and they're very specific. One of those phages is specific to Clostridium to C. difficile. I know that for a fact. And that's one of the bacteria that was associated with this. And then here's another one. This is the final one I wanted to share with you. Gut bacteria tell the brain what animals should eat. Neuroscientists have for the very first time shown that gut bacteria speak to the brain to control food choices in animals. This was published in the open access journal PLOS Biology. They identified 2 species of bacteria that can have this kind of impact. This is called the microbiome, the community of bacteria that live in your body. We have more bacteria, yeasts, and viruses in our bodies than we have human cells. Let that sink in for a minute. And so this is like big stuff. And they did these studies originally on Drosophila melanogaster, which is a fruit fly. And it's really easy to study this because they have a very, very short life cycle. And they found in the fruit fly there are 5 main bacterial species. In humans there are hundreds. But they were able to change the way that the fruit flies, the kind of food that they wanted, by changing their gut bacteria. And this has been the basis of a hypothesis for a long, long time in the United States and around the world among researchers who are looking particularly at obesity, but also at other metabolic disorders, things like type 2 diabetes and things like that, that perhaps, but particularly obesity, that perhaps this is associated with a screwed up gut profile. And the New York Times had a piece maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. It was a video that was in the New York Times where this guy who had his entire life, he'd had digestive problems, intestinal problems, and it had gone beyond that. It was giving him brain fog and depression and all kinds of things. And he just decided he was going to reboot his microbiome. And so he scrubbed himself sterile. He took massive amounts of antibiotics, and then he took pills that didn't dissolve in the stomach, but dissolved after they got past the stomach. Pills made of fecal matter from young people who had never taken antibiotics and who had healthy guts. And he rebooted successfully. And in fact, in Australia, this has become an industry. Poop transplants, replacing the bacteria in the gut to treat a whole variety of things. You can Google it. You can look it up. But it's just fascinating stuff. So now, I hope I haven't grossed you out, but I just find all this stuff incredibly fascinating that, we think we control our food cravings. No, bacteria do in our guts. We think that, both Parkinson's is just caused by, well, we don't know, right? Remember all those people, when Michael J. Fox got it? A bunch of the people on the set of the same show got it. I wonder if they all got the same gut bacteria. The conventional wisdom is they were probably all exposed to the same environmental toxin, but nobody knows. It's just a fascinating area of science.